Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a story you've probably never heard, but won't forget. Before Columbus set sail, before Europe even looked west, one man had already mapped the world's oceans with the largest fleet ever built. His name was Zheng He, and his ships were like cities, sailing under silk sails and imperial orders. This is a true story of power, discovery, and a forgotten age of Chinese ambition. But first, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now dim the lights, let the waves settle around you, and let's set sail together. China, the sleeping colossus of our own century, once ruled the oceans. To see how, sail 600 years back to the dawn of the 15th century. Europe groans beneath war and plague, and Columbus has not yet glimpsed an atlas. Yet in the east, the Ming dynasty stands rich, confident, and restive. Power changes hands in 1402, when Zheng He, a brilliant but ruthless prince, usurps his nephew and claims the throne. The new Yongle emperor must prove heaven favors him. A silk seal alone will not silence doubt. He needs a spectacle vast enough to awe mandarins, generals, and foreign courts alike. A theater wider than any land frontier. The sea. He vows to send Chinese banners where no emperor's voice has traveled, to turn horizon into tribute-bearing road. His decree ignites the greatest shipbuilding frenzy the world has ever seen. On the Yangtze at Nanjing, 7 stone dry docks, each longer than a football field, thunder day and night. Barges float cedar, fir, and ironwood downriver. 20,000 carpenters fit ribs reinforced with watertight bulkheads copied from bamboo. When finished, the flagship treasure ships stretch 140 meters, their 9 crimson sails rising like a floating skyline. Smaller troop transports, grain carriers, horse barges, and war junks fitted with bronze cannon cluster round the giants, forming a wooden metropolis. 317 hulls and nearly 28,000 men will heed the gong. A moving proof that China commands timber, labor, and will. A fleet that massive demands an iron soul. Zheng He chooses an unlikely servant. Ma He, a Muslim boy captured at 10 and forced to serve in the palace. Years of quiet brilliance earn him a new name, Zheng He, and in 1405 the eunuch becomes Grand Admiral of the Eastern Oceans, breaking every court precedent. Tall, charismatic, and fearless, he stands as living proof that talent can trump birth. The goal is not conquest. China already holds rice, silk, and silver beyond need. Tribute, intelligence, and prestige are the prizes. Where soft diplomacy fails, the silhouette of a treasure ship will tilt the scales. On a humid July dawn, drums roll, conches blare, and 300 ships slip downriver, banners snapping, incense curling through rigging, as citizens cheer the dragon's new wings. With the northeast monsoon at their backs, the treasure ships round Hainan toward Champa, today's Vietnam. Ports smell of camphor and sandalwood, riches coveted by Chinese artisans. Beyond commerce, Zheng He carries a message. Acknowledge Ming's supremacy and prosper, or resist and vanish. Before dawn, fishermen spy an alien skyline, crimson sails glowing like sunrise. By noon, the Thuban River mouth is barricaded by anchors larger than village boats. No arrows fly. Intimidation lies in scale. Envoys climb aboard with lacquerware, pepper, and rare woods. In return, they receive silk bolts, medicinal rhubarb, and a scroll edged in gold. Temple scribes copy inscriptions, surveyors chart shoals, and storytellers gather fresh tales before typhoon season drives the fleet onward south. 6 centuries later, British mariner Rex Warner falls in love with those tales. At a Hong Kong wharf, he finds an 18-meter junk, christens her precious dragon, and vows to trace Zheng He's wake under canvas and diesel. Months of refit devour savings. Finally, clearance comes, and the crew of 5 turns south into the same monsoon lanes. Storm squalls slap bamboo battens, unlit rafts drift by night, and rumors of pirates prickle the mind. A speedboat once surges close, only crab fishermen. Relief tastes like warm, oily tea. 9 uneasy days later, the replica junk enters Jianang Bay, where hotel towers crowd ancient pagodas. Warner dredges shards of blue-white porcelain labeled 1410, likely debris from a Ming escort wrecked on the outer reef, proof that legends leave fingerprints. Back in 1406, Zheng He steers southwest, holds loaded with hardwood and resins. Next lies the pirate-haunted Strait of Malacca, a 1,000-kilometer funnel of spice and danger. Daily gunnery drills echo. Bronze cannons spit fire over whitecaps. At night, astrologers consult constellations, trimming course to catch the shifting winds. Below deck cooks ladle rice congee. Musicians pluck lutes, and gamblers toss copper coins while barnacles hiss past the hull. Dawn shows a green smear on the horizon that swells into Malacca, gatekeeper to the spice highway. The Sultan bows beneath a yellow parasol, offers diamonds, and earns Chinese protection. A granite stele in Chinese, Arabic, and Malay rises beside the mosque, proclaiming that diversity prospers under dragon wings. Pirates persist. After one ambush, Zheng He hunts the raiders, executes their chiefs, and resettles survivors as farmers. Aceh rebels next. The Admiral lands troops, deposes a usurper, installs a compliant cousin, then presses on. Where Europeans will later build forts, the Ming leave local rulers bound by gratitude and caution. Monsoon science drives the fleet northwest. Sri Lanka rises, lush with rubies and cinnamon. King Alakeshvara musters war elephants and refuses tribute. Zheng He marches inland, seizes him in his palace, and ships him to China, a coup costing little blood. In Gala, a trilingual stele goes up. Faith is currency and generosity the seal of rank. Scholars trade star lore, gunners compare powder, sailors taste jackfruit wine, and tattoo Javanese dragons on sunburned arms. From Sri Lanka, the armada divides. Supply junks head for Bengal, while Zheng He pilots the core fleet across sapphire water to the Maldives, trading porcelain for cowries prized as currency. Then they reach Calicut, where pepper dries on endless beaches. Instead of a few dhows, 300 masts shoulder the sky. Silk and copper pour out. Pepper and sandalwood flood in. Translators juggle Mandarin, Tamil, and Arabic. Buddhist monks swap sutras for saffron. Unsatisfied, Zheng He pushes west to Hormuz, collects lapis and carpets, and finally to Malindi on Africa's warm coast. Swahili merchants lead ivory, gold, and fine giraffes aboard by woven ropes. When the giraffes parade in Nanjing, crowds believe they witness the mythical qilin, proof that heaven approves the emperor's reach. China greets the returning armada with trumpets and clouds of sandalwood incense. Porters stagger under pepper sacks. Giraffes step gingerly onto silk-covered gangplanks. Court painters scramble to pin exotic colors before memory fades, while eunuch clerks count coral, ambergris, and tribute scrolls that promise future loyalty. Yet spectacle hides strain. 7 voyages have devoured forests, bronze, and grain, just as the Forbidden City and northern ramparts claw for the same supplies. Senior mandarins, jealous and fearful, whisper that the sea swallows silver and returns only gossip. In 1422, the emperor halts further sailing. Flags furl, hemp rigging droops, and Zheng He sharpens maps in silence, hoping the wind of policy will shift once more. The pause ends when Zhu Di dies in 1424. His grandson, the Xuande emperor, recalls childhood parades of red sails and authorizes one last expedition. In 1432, Zheng He, now 62 and crippled by gout, boards his flagship in a sedan chair. The route revisits familiar ports, less to explore than to reassure allies that China still rules the sea. At Jeddah, envoys present silk at Mecca's gate. Chinese Muslims perform the Hajj and return with holy water and dates. Between Calicut and Hormuz, The Admiral's health collapses. Guided by lanterns and chanting, the fleet buries him at sea, though legend says a braid of hair and satin shoes reached Nanjing. The ships continue, delivering Arabian stallions, Persian carpets, and farewell letters before mooring home in 1433, commanderless yet intact. Without its hero, the Navy drifts. Reform-minded ministers praise the voyages, but Confucian conservatives tighten their grip, claiming water brings only waste. Budgets shrink, shipyards close, captains retire to reed villages. In 1449, Northern horsemen breach the Great Wall, and every available coin goes to cavalry, not keels. Hopes for an eighth voyage flicker, then die unread in memorials. In 1477, the Minister of War audits naval costs, brands the voyage logs subversive, and orders them burned. Knowledge curls into ash. New laws ban private ships with more than 2 masts. Pirates feast on the vacuum. When Portugal seizes Malacca in 1511, Beijing learns too late. The dragon that once terrified seas now listens to squeaking wheelbarrows along the Grand Canal. Isolation soon breeds ailments the court never predicted. Coastal fishermen smuggle silk south for pepper. Wandering monks barter gunpowder recipes with Malay traders. Portuguese cannons slip through black market coves. A new law bans ocean-going hulls larger than 2 masts, so merchants rebadge cargo craft as fishing boats and sail anyway. Corrupt prefects look away for a bribe of nutmeg or quicksilver. Pirates, once cowed by treasure ship broadsides, flourish in the vacuum, raiding Fujian salt junks and vanishing into creeks. Yet in every village along the South China Sea, an old man still tells of crimson sails that could blot out the sun. Children float paper junks at festival time, praying the legendary Admiral will guide them through storms and shoals. As dynasties turn, the legend ripens. Minstrels place Zheng He in moonlit duels with sea dragons. Monks claim he hid a golden compass beneath Pagoda Hill. Qing rulers, fearing rebellion, suppress the tales, but they linger in lullabies sung beside oyster beds. When steamships finally arrive in the 19th century, British surveyors at Gala uncover the trilingual granite stele and copy its strange cursive into notebooks, noting that the Chinese once stood here in great numbers and in good order. Maritime antiquarians chase shards of blue-white porcelain along Vietnamese reefs, sketching hull timbers thicker than any European keel. Each fragment whispers that Asia's coastal map was once inked in Mandarin calligraphy and measured in the length of a dragon's shadow. In 1908, workers dredging Nanjing's riverbank strike ancient oak planks 3 meters wide. Scholars measure mortises big enough to swallow an ox cart axle and finally credit the Ming chronicles. Treasure ships were no myth. During the Republican era, school primers exalt Zheng He as proof that China once led the world without firing a shot. After 1949, the new People's Republic adopts the story, blending socialist pride with maritime nostalgia. Archaeologists unearth peppercorns, East African cowries, and even a giraffe vertebra near the old shipyard, each find feeding documentaries and comic books. By the 1980s, the Navy launches a white-hulled training vessel named Zheng He and orders her to circle the globe, collecting handshakes from ports his fleet immortalized 5 centuries earlier. Rex Warner is waiting on the quay when that cadet ship berths at Portsmouth. Brass bands play. Chinese midshipmen swap pennants with British ensigns. Reporters ask about Zheng He's peaceful diplomacy. Warner watches the deck drills, imagines 9 crimson sails where radar domes now rise, and decides to finish his own wooden homage. 2 decades later, Precious Dragon is finally ready for blue water. Leaving Sri Lanka astern, she threads the Maldives by starlight, guided by sextant and GPS alike. Diesel tanks slosh half empty, the freezer fails, and rust freckles the anchor chain. Yet the crew keeps to Zheng He's ancient timetable. 10 incense sticks for each day, marking 24 ocean hours with a lingering scent of sandal and pine. Monsoon winds freshen from the southwest. Precious Dragon lowers the Chinese pattern lug sail, sets storm canvas, and pounds through steep Indian Ocean swells. For 6 days, gray water hammers the deckhouse like gravel. For 6 nights, lightning veins clouds bright enough to turn shadows silver. Each dawn, the crew logs compass bearings against the rising sun, matching them to silk chart facsimiles stitched into plastic sleeves. All share a superstitious vow not to open Zheng He's prayer, copied phonetically from temple archives until land is sighted. On the 7th evening, the barometer climbs, waves relax, and Orion's belt lifts clear of the horizon. By that star, they steer 285 degrees, exactly as the 15th century navigation scroll commands. Cargo tallied and formalities done, the crew ventures inland toward the ancient frankincense groves. Bleached wadis smell of resin and myrrh. Bedouin guides recount how Chinese sailors once bartered silk for sap that perfumed imperial robes. In hilltop ruins, Warner finds pottery shards whose glaze matches Ming kilns. Local elders claim them as heirlooms, souvenirs left by great red ships. Evening campfire talk turns philosophical. Could China's first age of sea power have survived if ministers had valued ocean lanes the way modern boardrooms prize supply chains? No one answers, but every crackling ember seems to carry an unspoken caution. That grandeur without continuity is sand on the wind. Stars wheel overhead, identical to the chart on Zheng He's last voyage. Return passages are always reflective. Precious dragon motors east, hugging the monsoon fringe past India's southern cape. Tankers thunder by like floating skylines. AIS beacons clutter the chart plotter. Yet the junk's wake marks the same corridor of converging currents mapped in 1415. Warner logs each sunrise in the old style. 1 incense length fair wind, dragon cloud in eastern quarter. Storms fade, fuel dwindles, and on the Andaman Sea a new worry appears. Plastic gyres swirling where flying fish once glittered. The sight jars harder than any gale, reminding the crew that mastery of the seas now includes stewardship. They jibe north toward Thailand, planning repairs and a school visit lecture on Zheng He's environmental insight. Take only tribute, leave only stories. Meanwhile, far above their wooden rigging, satellite constellations relay ship positions to Beijing, Washington, and Canberra in real time. Maritime pundits parse every Chinese port loan, every destroyer launch, invoking Zheng He as both inspiration and warning. The official line calls his voyages harmonious exchanges, yet neighbors remember cannon decks and strategic harbor choices. In Singapore symposiums, scholars debate whether the maritime Silk Road is history repeating or merely rhyming. A printed banner shows a treasure ship morphing into a container vessel, beneath the slogan, "Shared Oceans, Shared Future." Warner speaks on a panel, arguing that awe matters. Crimson sails once persuaded better than bronze guns, and modern soft power will hinge on whether green technology replace. From Singapore, Precious Dragon hugs the Malacca Strait, shadowed by tugs, ferries, and automated surveillance drones. One twilight, a Malaysian patrol boat hails, requests boarding, then waves off after a selfie beside the battered junk, proof that even algorithms respect legend. Crossing the equator, the crew hosts a ceremony. Seawater poured over carved dragons, a moment of silence for Zheng He's sailors, then laughter as novices earn shellback status. Charts soon mark the final leg home. Singapore to Hong Kong, 350 nautical miles. Storm season sleeps, and the China Coast Guard grants an honorary escort for the last 50. When Precious Dragon enters Victoria Harbor, tourists cheer and cell phones bloom like lanterns. News feeds dub the voyage Silk Route 2.0, wooden but still viral. Warner's expedition ends where Zheng He's began, on a river delta scented with diesel and incense. The junk splashes to her berth beside a modern museum hall shaped like a treasure ship's foredeck. Exhibit curators unload her cargo, photographs, GPS tracks, seawater samples, and the teak model from Oman, adding tangible layers to centuries of narrative. At the closing gala, Warner addresses students. History is a compass. Its needle swings with every choice we make on land or sea. He hands the logbook to a robotics engineer planning an autonomous sailing drone, urging that the first waypoint be Champa, in homage to crimson sails. Applause rolls like surf. Outside, harbor lights reflect twin silhouettes, steel freighters and one weather-worn junk, both facing a horizon that refuses to stay still. Weeks after docking, Precious Dragon becomes a floating classroom. Grade schoolers file aboard, scanning QR codes that trigger augmented reality portholes. Tap to replace the skyline with 15th century Malacca. Swipe to load a 3D treasure ship towering high as a 10-story block. Guides invite students to smell resin, beat a replica drum, and spin a magnetic compass identical to those Zheng He issued. Heritage officials note record attendance and hurriedly add bilingual panels. At night, the junk glows under LED rigging while drone cameras stream tours to rural classrooms. Some parents arrive skeptical, leave convinced their children saw proof that Chinese innovation once matched ambition plank for plank and may yet do so again. Across the river, a new pavilion houses the voyage archives. Curators project satellite maps beside silk charts, letting visitors fade one into the other. Ghostly routes converge, diverge, and reunite at Hormuz like arterial paths. Naval cadets linger longest, matching old windroses to modern forecast grids, discussing how diesel rationing drills could blend with wing-sail kites now tested on container ships. A retired admiral tells them Zheng He's secret weapon was logistics discipline. The rest was flair. Outside, a full-scale fiberglass treasure ship bow pierces a reflecting pool. Water laps quietly, mirroring crimson spotlights, a theatrical reminder that spectacle still persuades even in an age of spreadsheets. Fresh data arrive daily. Divers off Vietnam discover bronze cannon identical to ones listed in a 1408 manifest, confirming firepower once dismissed as legend. In Nanjing, ground-penetrating radar finds additional slipways beneath factory asphalt. LIDAR reveals kiln scars where roof tiles for dockyard barracks were fired. Universities digitize every shard, beam models into an open cloud so any scholar can rotate a giraffe figurine that once graced the emperor's menagerie. AI reconstructions animate loading scenes. Teak trunks slide down greased ramps. Sailors chant cadence. Drummers regulate tempo. Watching on screen, Warner realizes archaeology now sails faster than Precious Dragon ever could, turning every bite into a plank of recovered memory. Yet the future ocean looks fragile. Marine biologists briefing the museum warn that coastal plastic density has doubled since Warner left Hong Kong. Historical romance segues into climate math. Zheng He's entire fleet emitted less carbon in 7 voyages than one modern megafreighter burns crossing the Pacific. Curators install a new exhibit. Wind then, wind now. Pairing bamboo battens with carbon fiber rotor sails that promise 20% fuel cuts. Visitors pump hand cranks to feel resistance differences and watch LEDs compare emissions. A placard quotes the Admiral's reported maxim: "The sea rewards respect, punishes neglect." Hashtag stickers direct guests to citizen cleanup apps, turning nostalgia into small but measurable action. International excitement breeds cooperation. Indonesia proposes a spice route reenactment flotilla. 1 Indonesian pinisi, 1 Indian dhow, 1 Kenyan dhow, and Precious Dragon as ambassador. Diplomatic notes ricochet. Insurers balk. Historians cheer. The plan crystallizes into a 2029 sail pass timed for the Ming voyage's 625-year anniversary. Crews will exchange seedlings, nutmeg, clove, cinnamon, symbolically reversing a millennium of biotic transfer. Skeptics predict flag disputes. Optimists call it floating soft power. Warner signs on as navigator emeritus, pledging to use sextant first, GPS second, to honor tradition. School children across 5 coastlines start building kite compasses, ready to launch them in unison when the flotilla clears harbor. Meanwhile, engineers eye the past for propulsion clues. A Guangzhou startup trials folding bamboo carbon wings on a coastal bulker, invoking treasure ship aerodynamics to harness trade winds. Japanese yards test hydrogen fuel cells cooled by seawater, while Nordic designers resurrect skysail parachutes once marketed for tankers. Maritime journals debate whether full decarbonization needs nuclear floaters or simply smarter routing that mirrors Zheng He's monsoon calendars. A Chinese-Danish consortium publishes simulation data showing a 30-day Shanghai-Hamburg run powered 80% by wind if captains accept seasonal windows. Investors recoil at slower delivery. Environmentalists cheer. Logisticians calculate buffer stock. The argument feels oddly familiar. Efficiency versus daring, ledger versus horizon. Global politics provides its own squalls. Patrol craft jostle around disputed reefs, and think tank webinars splice satellite images with Ming stele inscriptions. One side quotes Zheng He's line, "We do not annex to prove benevolent intent." Another retorts that bronze cannon traveled with incense. A mediated forum in Kuala Lumpur projects the Gal inscription, 3 scripts praising 3 gods. Delegates pause, rare quiet amid maritime rhetoric. They draft a non-binding pledge. No live fire drills within 30 nautical miles of any historically listed site. Cynics scoff, but shipping insurers quietly reduce premiums on those routes. Money-nudging policy where proclamations cannot. History, it seems, can still broker incremental calm. Back in Hong Kong, Precious Dragon rests under tarpaulin. The crew disperses to desk jobs, yet each keeps a scrap, deck spike, sail patch, or compass card, tucked in a drawer like salt-scented proof of alternative possibilities. Warner edits his log into a book, weaving 15th century dispatches with 21st century GPS readouts. A documentary option sells quickly. Producers envision drone shots over turquoise reefs, voiceovers quoting Zheng He's edicts about harmony. Warner negotiates for accuracy clauses, wary of cinematic shortcuts. On release, reviews praise the balance between spectacle and substance. Kids post fan art, treasure ships sporting solar panels, giraffes wearing VR headsets, proof that legend adapts to hold each new dream. Academic momentum builds. A Shanghai-based institute announces plans to build a full-scale treasure ship replica in steel-framed laminated timber, seaworthy enough for circumnavigation. Critics call it nationalist pageantry. Supporters foresee a floating STEM lab. Design renders show hybrid sails plus methanol backup engines, crewed by rotating student cohorts. The itinerary mirrors Zheng He's greatest haul: Vietnam, Java, Malacca, Sri Lanka, Hormuz, Kenya, then crosses to Brazil, arguing that cultural dialogue need not respect old cartographic limits. Fundraising explodes after a viral clip of schoolgirls coding autopilot routines while standing on the museum bow installation. Even skeptics admit the project promises unmatched outreach in an era of screen-fatigued education. High above these plans, Earth observation satellites witness a quieter revolution. Shipping corridors creeping poleward to dodge rising typhoon belts. Arctic passages open 3 weeks longer each decade, tempting carriers with shorter Asia-Europe runs. Chinese icebreakers named after constellations survey leads beneath auroras, while Russian convoys shadow them, reviving Cold War optics. Again, Zheng He enters discourse. Commentators note he avoided polar adventure despite capability, choosing stable monsoon lanes over heroics. The takeaway for modern planners: predictability trumps novelty when cargo underwrites empire, is debated in boardrooms seeking risk-adjusted returns. In PowerPoints, his silhouette now appears beside bar graphs of fuel spread risk, a ghost lecturing on cost of ambition. As 2030 approaches, museum curators schedule a midnight ceremony on the lunar calendar date matching Zheng He's first departure. Candles outline a dragon on the pier. Holographic sails bloom above the harbor, generated by synchronized drones. Elder musicians beat barrel drums. School choirs chant lines from the Galistele in Mandarin, Tamil, and Persian. Warner, hair silvered, strikes the ship's bell 8 times. 1 for each voyage completed, 1 for the next yet to sail. Spectators fall silent. For a breath, the only sound is water lapping hulls. the same rhythm monks scribbled 600 years ago. Then fireworks trace a compass rose overhead, petals of light pointing every direction at once, reminding all present that a horizon is merely a question posed by the sea. Dockside fireworks echo over Victoria Harbor while laser drones seal the sky with a compass rose the size of a stadium. Piers thrum with deal-making. 4 education ministries swap tide table lesson kits. 3 shipping CEOs sign letters pledging kite sail retrofits on 10 ocean-going freighters. 2 NGOs announce funding for a coral corridor stretching from Zanzibar to Lombok. Warner hears a kindergarten choir revive a 15th-century chant recovered from palace scrolls, and realizes the richest cargo is collective memory, newly awake. Asked if another voyage will follow, a Kenyan deckhand laughs and answers, "The sea will tell us when." Within hours, the quote trends worldwide, reminding skeptics that true permission still belongs to tides. Academics now pivot from biography to blueprint. Could Zheng He's fusion of soft spectacle and disciplined logistics map a credible post-carbon shipping grid? Economists warn against romance. Naval engineers counter that wind plus green ammonia equals solvable math. A historian recites the lone surviving line from a 1420 log. "We brought splendor and departed, that the world might breathe." And hush falls. A startup founder tweets the phrase atop a render of a sail hybrid mega freighter captioned "Splendor without footprint." Venture capital pledges surge. Soccer Dragon Wind lights up social feeds, and business schools schedule workshops titled "Prestige as Fuel." Suddenly, the Admiral's ghost has entered the boardroom, talking emissions and return on wonder. Academics now pivot from biography to blueprint. Could Zheng He's fusion of soft spectacle and disciplined logistics map a credible post-carbon shipping grid? Economists warn against romance. Naval engineers counter that wind plus green ammonia equals solvable math. A historian recites the lone surviving line from a 1420 log. "We brought splendor and departed, that the world might breathe." And hush falls. A startup founder tweets the phrase atop a render of a sail hybrid mega freighter captioned "Splendor without footprint." Venture capital pledges surge. Soccer Dragon Wind lights up social feeds, and business schools schedule workshops titled "Prestige as Fuel." Suddenly, the Admiral's ghost has entered the boardroom, talking emissions and return on wonder. Hundreds of kilometers away, 9-year-old Li Na streams the drone show on a chipped tablet inside her Hainan farmhouse. Holographic crimson sails shimmer above the rice paddies, while a narrator recounts Zheng He's captive childhood turned maritime triumph. Inspired, Li folds scrap homework paper into a tiny junk, whispers destinations, Champa, Malacca, Kilwa, and floats it down an irrigation channel. The boat snags on sprouts, rights itself, glides on. Grandmother retrieves and dries the fragile hull on the kitchen sill. Years later, Li Na will cite that night in her ocean engineering application. Proof that ripples can reach futures unseen. Legends propagate like seeds on water, finding soil in restless minds. Legends survive by changing shape. Timber morphs into algorithms, incense into data packets, but the tug of an unbroken horizon endures. Treasure ships sailed scarcely 30 years, yet 6 centuries later their wake guides, warns, inspires. Whether tomorrow's fleet raises silk, carbon fiber, or solar membranes, any helmsman who hears wind in rigging echoes Zheng He's oath. Sail to learn, trade to connect, return to renew. Lights fade astern, stars sharpen ahead, and another keel, wooden, steel, or virtual, cuts through water already thick with memory. Continuity is the real compass. It keeps history's needle steady even when charts, crews, and fuels are utterly new. By 2040, a sail hybrid megafreighter christened Harmony of Winds retraces the Ming route. 90-meter composite wings harvest monsoon power. Green ammonia turbines idle in a gentle hum through calms. Each port call swaps AI-logged emission files for local climate data, turning science into the new tribute. Children board via hatches shaped like Keelan jaws, scanning biometrically linked passports that trigger augmented reality deck drills. Old bronze harbor bells ring beside 3D printed chimes tuned to prevailing wind speeds, fusing two metallurgies across 500 years. The voyage streams live in 10 languages, its carbon dashboard ticking downward like a public scoreboard. Far off on Mars, colonists watch delayed packets of the same voyage. In Utopia Planitia's low-gravity dome, students build balsa-plastic junks that glide on airflows from life support fans, proving monsoon physics scales even under a salmon-colored sky. Their teacher ends class quoting Zheng He, "The sea rewards respect," then adds, "Every frontier will do the same." The clip loops on Earth, reminding viewers that exploration inherits duty, whether the medium is water, vacuum, or code. Social channels splice red sail imagery with rovers under auroras, forging a new folklore where oceans and orbits rhyme. Back on Earth, negotiators convene in Zanzibar to finalize an Ocean Commons Treaty. Preamble lines cite the Galles Stele and Ming logs as shared heritage. Articles pledge safe passage for zero-carbon craft and legal protection for archaeological wreck sites. Delegates toast with cinnamon tea on Precious Dragon's freshly oiled deck, while satellites beam the ceremony to classrooms. Insurers promptly shave premiums on treaty lanes. Traders reroute accordingly, proving symbolism can move spreadsheets within a quarter. Critics scoff, yet coral nurseries already sprout along the mapped corridor, seeded by biologists who attended the signing. Policy may be slow, but polyculture diplomacy roots fast in hospitable water. Hong Kong's waterfront museum expands, adding a glass atrium bent like an unfurled mainsail. Visitors tread a timeline floor that triggers ambient audio, shipyard saws, cannon salutes, container cranes, then fades to a single heartbeat at century midpoints. A final whisper quotes Zheng He's farewell. "Guard what you learn." Exit kiosks invite each guest to pledge. Skip single-use plastic, backwind tech, study ocean science. 70% tap yes, a modest tide yet rising. Outside, a full-scale fiberglass bow slices a reflecting pool. Water laps quietly, mirroring crimson LEDs, warning that spectacle and stewardship must share the same hull. Precious Dragon, weather-scarred yet revered, relocates upriver to quiet moorings. Solar trickle chargers feed her bilge pumps. Saturday tours still queue along the jetty. Warner, Archivist Emeritus, logs each minor repair, proving that maintenance outlives headlines. A new tradition blooms. Graduating cadets slip sealed notes into the ballast, dreams to be opened in 10 years. The bilge will never sail, yet hope floats there like lamp oil in a blackout. Some evenings, Warner sits alone on the deckhouse roof, listening to tide slaps identical to those that once echoed off teak in Hormuz, feeling past and present splice cleanly. Scholars project forward. Climate models suggest monsoon belts will creep poleward. Arctic straits may cut Asia-Europe routes by 1,000 miles. Ice-class freighters named after constellations scout polar lanes, towing sensor buoys bred from Ming compassfish designs. Analysts note Zheng He sidestepped high-latitude gambles despite capability, valuing predictability over bravado. Modern planners study that restraint, weighing fuel savings against rescue costs. In corporate decks, his silhouette appears beside risk matrices, a ghost lecturing executives that ambition without prudence can founder faster than woodworm in a keel. Centuries hence, another navigator, human or algorithm, will sense wind, virtual or real, and feel history steady the helm. Zheng He's saga endures because water remembers hulls that dared its breadth, and people remember stories that dare their minds. Horizons will keep posing questions. Curiosity will keep answering with sails of whatever fabric the future supplies. Thus the wake lengthens, the legend deepens, and the sea remains wide enough for every new ambition to carve its own bright line before rolling back to blue. The chapter closes not with a period, but with a lingering swell inviting the next voyage to begin.